Welcome to the online pre-recorded Sunday service for July 18th, 2021. My name is the Reverend Dr. Julie Kane, and on behalf of the whole congregation, I want to thank you for joining us today. Our theme this month from our covenant groups and for our worship services is Going Somewhere with a question mark. We're starting a new year of covenant group themes, and I will be talking about covenant groups in this service, but I want to start with an opening reading by the Unitarian Universalist minister Kenneth Patton. This house is for the ingathering of nature and human nature. It is a house of friendships, a haven in trouble, an open room for the encouragement of our struggle. It is a house of freedom, guarding the dignity and worth of every person. It offers a platform for the free voice, for declaring both in times of security and danger, the full and undivided conflict of opinion. It is a house of truth-seeking, where scientists can encourage devotion to their quests, where mystics can abide in a community of seekers. It is a house of art, adorning its celebrations with melodies and with handiworks. It is a house of prophecy, outrunning times past and times present, with visions of growth and progress. This house, our church sanctuary and our community, is a cradle for our dreams, the workshop for our common endeavors.
Welcome. I'm Jim Peters, and on behalf of the congregation, I welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Shenandoah Valley. I'm your worship associate for today's service, and we gather together here with our doubts as well as our convictions, with our fears as well as our hopes, with our failures and our aspirations, with our sorrows and our joys. Whether you're joining us today for the first time, or you've been a member or friend of our congregation for years, we are glad you're here. Whatever your faiths have been, if any, whatever your background, whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived here, you are welcome. And now, as Dixie Wiles comes forward, let us say together from our homes the words for lighting our chalice. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, to share. And we invite you to join with us as we say our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help our neighbor. To these ends, we covenant one with another.
And now, before proceeding with the service, as we have done this whole time since the COVID-19 pandemic started in March of last year, we pause for a time of silence, recognizing the unusual times that we're living in, as we transition back to some of our social activities for some of us, and kind of renegotiate how we're moving in the world, especially in anticipation of the fall when a lot of things will be gearing up, including regular church services here in our building. So let's pause just for a moment of silence, recognizing the continuing challenges of these times in which we live. Through deep listening to our own hearts and the hearts of others, may we find the best ways to move forward in these challenging times. Amen and blessed be. The title of today's service is The Art of Deep Listening, and our meditation words are from our hymnal by another Unitarian Universalist minister, Jacob Trapp, to help us think about deep listening in these challenging times. If it is language that makes us human, one half of language is to listen. Silence can exist without speech, but speech cannot live without silence. Listen to the speech of others. Listen even more to their silence. To pray is to listen to the revelations of nature, to the meaning of events in our lives. To listen to music is to listen also to silence and to find the stillness deepened and enriched.
The words for reflection are adapted from a reading in the UUA hymnal supplement titled Lifting Our Voice, Readings in the Living Tradition by Penny Hackett Evans. Each of us brings a separate truth here. We bring the truth of our own life, our own story. We don't come as empty vessels, but as full people, each with our own story and our own truth. We seek to add to our truths and add to our stories. Our community is rich with truth, rich with experience, and all manner of people are here. Needy, joyful, frightened, anxious, bored. We all bring our truth with us. We may recognize the truth and the story in other lives than our own. May we hear and honor the truths that we all bring when we gather together. Together, we have our truths. Together, we have our story. Together, we have a community.
Stories, stories, stories. Our whole lives are made of stories. I would venture to say that the coolest thing about being a human being, as opposed to all other sentient beings we know about, is that we sure do love a good story. In the biological tree of life on planet Earth, we humans are the meaning maker species. It is an amazing gift of consciousness that we inherit at our birth. The art of deep listening is a topic that I return to on a pretty regular basis as a Unitarian Universalist minister, because it is not only foundational to our faith as Unitarian Universalists, but it's also a much needed spiritual practice for all people in our world during these strange times in which we are living. If we are to survive as a species on planet Earth, given the catastrophic challenges that we face today, Our only hope is in being able to do it together. The catastrophic challenges we face today, like global climate crises, global political crises of a growing populist authoritarianism and unbridled consumption with consumer economies, are pushing our planet and our societies to the limits of sustainability. As a faith community, Unitarian Universalists are founded on democratic values of listening to each other's voices and perspectives and working together to find our way forward. Instead of a common creed of doctrine or dogma that is required, we Unitarian Universalists are held together by a covenant, an agreement of how we aspire to be with one another in an ongoing way as a community, fundamentally democratic community, meaning every person has a voice and a perspective, and every perspective matters. The covenant tradition of Unitarian Universalism goes back to what is called the Mayflower Compact. Yes, that Mayflower, the ship that arrived at Plymouth Rock. The Puritan pilgrims were breaking away from the Church of England and wanting to start a new kind of community, one based on democratic values and of everyone having a voice and with the sharing of knowledge and wisdom with one another based on lived experience, rather than a required doctrine handed down through authority. These folks were added to a long tradition of free thinkers who are our forebears as Unitarian Universalists. Alice Blair Wesley is a retired UU minister and scholar of our historical covenant tradition. She talks about how our lives are all rooted in story, whether it is our personal history or our family history or the history and story of our faith tradition. Telling stories and ever tending to our evolving stories as meaning makers is an essential part of our faith tradition as Unitarian Universalists. What we call the free church tradition, which is one name for our heritage, calls us to listen deeply to ourselves, our hearts, our souls, our conscience, but also listen deeply to each other. It calls us to speak with one another faithfully so that together we can choose better ways of moving forward in the world, more informed, more attuned to the needs and perspectives of one another, and able to work together cohesively. These ideas are summed up very nicely in a contemporary translation of the covenants that the Pilgrims used, referred to historically as the Mayflower Compact, a charter, if you wish, of how they intended to work together and build a new way in a new place. Alice Blair Wesley translates the traditional covenant into contemporary language this way. I think it's beautiful. We pledge to walk together in the ways of truth and affection, as best we know them now, or may learn them in the days to come, that we and our children may be fulfilled, and that we may speak to the world in words and actions of peace and goodwill. The Pilgrims' Covenant, as is ours today for our own faith community at the UU Church of the Shenandoah Valley, is designed to be a compass for us to find our way forward, listening to our best selves and listening to each other together. As the most basic institution of liberal religion, our covenant as Unitarian Universalists guides us to be communities of both support and accountability to one another. Our covenant, a practice in the art of deep listening, helps us have a spiritual practice of living more deeply, more authentic, and more creative lives, individual lives and the life of our community. I wanted to talk about our UU covenant tradition as a spiritual practice of deep listening today, because it really serves as the grounding for how we are with each other in religious community. In many ways, we may appear like a secular organization, and that's fine, but fundamentally, we are a faith community that chooses to be together, united in sharing not a required doctrine, but rather common values, which are nicely articulated in our 7 UU principles, and of course by the covenant that we return to every week. So I want to apply this philosophical foundation of covenant to 2 of our regular collective practices here at church. The covenant groups, which function as an adult faith development opportunity, and the year-long schedule of monthly themes that are used both in the covenant groups and for our Sunday worship services. If you haven't had a chance yet to view the wonderful Sunday service for July 11th, with its celebration of creative contributions from all of our church's 7 covenant groups, I encourage you to do so. They were charged with finding silver linings during that 15-month-long pandemic quarantine. You'll definitely want to check it out, and you can find it on our church website. The groups support that a good percentage of our whole congregation's members and friends found in their covenant groups during the trying months of the past year is just one aspect of the power of covenant groups to build community and nurture personal growth. In the coming year, I will continue to offer leadership in providing materials and support to our covenant groups in the absence of a full-time religious education staff person, as we had when Corey Ness was with us. I'm getting ready to have a retreat workshop for the covenant group facilitators so that we can all strengthen our skills in creating a space for community building, connecting with each other through that practice of deep listening, and as an opportunity to nurture our personal and spiritual growth. The monthly themes that the covenant groups explore in their gatherings are the same ones that we will see in worship services for the coming year, just as we have done these last few years when we were working with the UU Soul Matters curriculum materials. The format of covenant groups is actually designed to be kind of like an informal worship service, a space to come together in community, to check in with each other, and to reflect on the stories and meanings of our lives in a sacred space. We make it sacred with our personal sharing from the heart. In a way, the diverse readings that we explore in covenant groups are a UU alternative to traditional Christian Bible study. Themes and life lessons that we reflect upon are drawn, though, from a larger spectrum of scripture, so to speak. Multiple religious traditions, both sacred and secular works, such as writings from poetry, history, science, and social commentary. All of these sources are referred to as informing our UU principles, including the prophetic words of men and women throughout history, and that is a part of our own living tradition. Covenant groups with their monthly themes that are reflected in Sunday worship are a way for each of us individually and all of us together as a community to engage in a spiritual practice of reflection and discernment. This is the art of listening deeply. We're making meaning from the stories of our lives in a way that informs how we choose to move forward in our daily actions. It's an art of deep listening. It takes practice. It takes patience. We don't always get it right, but we keep developing our skills and our wisdom. We keep tending to our relationships, the relationships that we have with our own growing self, the relationships that we have with each other in our chosen community, and our relationships to the larger world all around us. Are we living our values? Are we growing in wisdom and commitment to that which has the deepest meaning for us? This is part of the practice in the art of deep listening. And we can do it together in a community that we call beloved as a way to build a better world. May it be so.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
As Dixie Wiles extinguishes the flame, let us say together the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of our community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. The purpose of the church is to encourage all who gather to grow more generous in spirit and in action. We hope you will consider making an offering after today's service through our website, uushenandoah.org. This will allow us to exercise that generosity of spirit for this self-supporting church and its many ministries which continue while we are not able to physically meet together. We invite you to join our church community at noon at our virtual post-service gathering for joys and concerns, followed by our coffee hour conversations in smaller breakout groups. The Zoom link is found in your UUCSV email. Thank you for joining us today.
Be sure to stay tuned to get a little more information about our Share the Plate organization recipient for July. And also you won't want to miss the closing music. This is a song that was written by one of our Covenant Group members, David Adams, and shared as a part of his experience in the Covenant Group that Jim Peters has actually been kind of the moderator. Is that what you call it, Jim? convener. So I want to offer again that beautiful contemporary translation of the Pilgrim's Covenant from the Mayflower that comes to us through Alice Blair Wesley. We pledge to walk together in the ways of truth and affection, as best we know them now, or may learn them in the days to come, that we and our children may be fulfilled, and that we may speak to the world in words and actions of peace and goodwill. Thanks again for joining us today. Stay safe, stay strong, and we're looking forward to seeing you again in person soon.
Deep, deep peace from the earth to you. Deep, deep peace from the sky to you. Deep, deep peace from the sea to you. Deep, deep peace from me to you. Deep, deep peace. Deep, deep peace. Deep, deep peace from the wind to you. Deep, deep peace from the flower to you. Deep, deep peace from the tree to you. Deep, deep peace from me to you. Deep, deep